Everyone says it takes forever to save enough to buy a house in Europe, but I help my clients save enough for their down payment in less than 3 years, without sacrificing their lifestyle. The fastest did it in just 1 year. The problem is, most people just try to save money hoping it will be enough to buy their dream home, but they never reach the target because they don't know how much they actually need, how long it will realistically take, or where to put their money to reach it faster. So in this video, I'm going to show you my 4-step system and the free tools I created that help my clients save their house deposit 3 times faster, so that you will be able to buy your own house sooner too. To start, let's look at the step that could save you tens of thousands of euros when buying a house. To prove this point, let me show you what happened with my client Marco. Marco wanted to buy a house in the next 1 to 2 years max. He had a timeline in mind, he was motivated, and he had been saving money. But when we sat down to analyze his finances and his plan, we realized he would have never been able to afford the house he wanted. And if he had continued with his original plan, he would have found himself asking for a personal loan on top of the mortgage to be able to pay for all the housing costs he was going to face. This would have meant entering into a paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, where all his income was going to repay the interest on the debt he had, leading him in a situation where he would have never been able to save any more money. This is because, like most people do, when planning the purchase, Marco was only thinking about saving money for the down payment and having enough income to cover the mortgage. But he was forgetting about all the acquisition and monthly costs that come with buying a house. When we calculated the real cost of ownership, we saw that he was underestimating his costs by about 150,000 euros. And this is by far the biggest mistake I see Europeans make when trying to save for a house. They massively underestimate the real cost by at least 20%, if not more. And this is why the first step in my system is to calculate the real cost of buying your house. But how do you actually calculate it? I've built a calculator that I give to my clients and that I'm sharing with you for free that helps you calculate it in just a couple minutes. You find it down in the description. Let me quickly show you how this works. First, you enter the price of the house you want to buy. Then the duration of the mortgage, the down payment, and all the acquisition costs, which most people forget to take into consideration. Legal costs, agency fees, renovation, and furniture. And look at that. The down payment in this case is 60,000 euros. But the actual costs you have to cover are closer to 170,000 euros, which is a huge difference. Then you fill all the monthly costs, your mortgage, your taxes, insurance, utilities, building, fees, maintenance. Very important one. It's way more expensive than people think and costs for future renovations. There you see that the actual monthly cost of your house is way higher than the mortgage. 1,700 versus 1,000 if you have a low interest rate. So if you don't take into account all these numbers, your plan to buy a house will just bring you to ruin, and this is the reason why you must pass through step 1 of my system if you really want to buy a house. That brings us to the next big question, to which if you don't answer, you will always end up disappointed. How long will it take me to afford this house? Marco, as most people do, had a timeline in mind that was based on his will. He never really thought how long it would actually take to have enough money to afford his house. He was thinking, I want to buy a house in 1 or 2 years. I'll start saving money so that I will manage to do it. In practice, this just doesn't work. That's why the second step of my system is to estimate how long it will actually take you to afford your house. But how do you do that? To help Marco and my other clients, I've built another free tool that helps you estimate your timeline. As before, you find it down in the description. So together, Mark and I calculated that he would need about 64,000 euros to cover all the acquisition costs for his house, as he is willing to put a smaller down payment, and since he has the opportunity to finance the renovation with a mortgage. So at the time, he was saving 3,000 euros per year for the house, and he had already saved 20,000. The thing is, with this plan, he would have needed almost 10 years to afford the house. And here is a very important point. If he hadn't done step 1 and calculated how much he really needed, he would have tried to save only 30,000 euros instead of 64, and he would have actually reached his objective in less than 3 years. That's why he thought he could afford his house so soon. But in reality, he was far from being able to do it. And this meant the plan had to change. Which brings us to step 3. Analyzing your timeline and seeing if you can shorten it. Because when you see your timeline for the first time, you might love it, or you might hate it. Maybe it says 5 years and you're thinking, that's perfect. Or maybe it says 10 years and you're thinking, that's not gonna work. And this was exactly Marco's case. It was too much time for him. So we analyzed his whole finances and plan and searched for opportunities to shorten the timeline. Doing that, we saw that he was investing in the stock market 1,000 euros per month. But since his main objective was to buy a house, we redirected this money to his savings account. And thanks to that, his timeline went down to under 3 years. That's why if you want to keep your timeline short, you have to analyze your finances and plan to find ways to optimize it. Now, not everyone has 1,000 per month to redirect like Marco did. I know it. So what should you do if your timeline is longer than you want and you don't have all this money available? You have 4 main opportunities. First one is to optimize your expenses. This doesn't forcefully mean reducing all your expenses and sacrificing your lifestyle, but it means redirecting them to what matters most to you. Most people spend more than they think on stuff they don't care about, which instead could be used for what really matters to them, like buying a house. My client Luca did exactly this and managed to triple his savings in just 1 year, which allowed him to buy his house way sooner than expected. Second, increase your income. I know it's obvious and easier said than done, but it's still something that will definitely help you reach any of your financial goals sooner, so it should be one of your focuses. So if you find an opportunity to increase your income, just take it. Third, adjust your house target. It can be a smaller house, maybe a different neighborhood, or maybe it's just about spending less on renovations. And fourth, you can just accept a longer timeline to get the house you want. At some point, math is math. And if you want that specific house, you need more time to save for it. And that's okay. At least you know it. But here's what you need to understand about this decision. If your timeline is too long in your opinion, there are really only 3 possible reasons. 1, you're aiming too high for what you can realistically afford right now. 2, you're spending too much and need to optimize your expenses. Or 3, you're not earning enough yet and need to focus on growing your salary before you can afford the house you want. The important thing is to figure out which of these 3 problems you have and then act accordingly. Because once you know, you can actually do something about it. Now, step 4 is critical, because if you do this wrong, you will not be able to pay for your house. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make with the savings for their houses. Marco was unconsciously doing it as well, because he was putting a good part of his savings in the stock market. Now, don't get me wrong, I love investing in the stock market, and it's the best way to generate wealth. But if your objective is to buy a house in the next 10 years, stocks are the worst place you could put your money. The stock market is very volatile over the short term, and this means that if at the moment you want to buy your house, the market is not doing great, you will find yourself without enough money to pay for it. This is why step 4 of my system is just going gambling all the money. Like this, you lose everything and you have no problem. No, it is to have a safe strategy to invest your money so that you will actually be able to buy your house. But how do you do that? You have 3 main options. Option 1, high yield savings account. These pay around 2 to 2.5% in Europe right now. They're completely liquid and they're very safe. Platforms like Trade Republic, Trading 212 and Interactive Brokers all offer high yield savings accounts. The advantage is that they're really easy to set up, but they have the lowest return. That's probably the best choice if you're buying your house soon, as the low difference in return wouldn't really make any difference. Option 2, short-term government bonds. These typically pay between 3 to 4% and are also very safe, especially if you're buying bonds from stable European governments. The downside is that they are the least liquid option of the 3, and they have a fixed duration, so good planning is important to use them properly. Option 3, bond ETFs. They also deliver returns 3 to 4% and give you diversification across many bonds. The advantage is they're very liquid, and these give you a lot of flexibility, but they are more volatile. They're perfect if you don't know exactly when you will buy. The key is this: your house savings should be safe and accessible, and they should also be working for you. Because even at 2 or 3%, that extra return can shorten your timeline by a month or even a year, depending on how much you're saving. So there you have it, my exact 4-step system to save for your house. Now, even if you follow all 4 steps perfectly, you might still be frustrated with how long your timeline is. That's exactly where my client Luca was, a timeline of 7 years and an objective of 2 years. So we worked together to optimize his expenses, and he managed to triple his savings in the first year, going from 15,000 to 45,000 euros, and then continued that momentum to save enough for his house in another 2 years total. So if you feel the same and you would like to reach your savings objective faster, watch this next video, where I show the exact system I used with Luca to triple his savings in just 1 year.